Right, here we are again, Uncle Stu's Saturday morning vintage matinee. Just my way of trying to alleviate your boredom during these lockdowns. I've got to admit I am struggling with this one. I hope Boris has some good news for us next week. Fingers crossed on that one. Right, people are constantly asking me what that black and silver device is on the handlebar near to the left hand mirror, and it gets a little bit tedious trying to explain to everybody that it's a sat-nav mount. So what I thought I would do is a double bill this week. First of all, wiring up a sat-nav or similar device courtesy of one of Motone's little gadgets, and the second one is the review for the TomTom 550 Rider sat-nav, a video that incorporates some pretty epic droneage, if I do say so myself. So get yourself over to the kiosk, order a Wessler's burger with extra onions and ketchup, crack open a can of dandelion and burdock, and settle yourself down for a 20-minute optical smorgasbord of classic vintage video content. Here we go. Right, it's been a really busy week this week, and as often happens when you're in a rush you get things wrong. So first of all, I need to make an apology to everybody and to Motone for the video that I put up on Wednesday, because I made a little bit of a mistake over how the Monza caps are assembled before fitting, and I'm now going to put that right. As was quite rightly pointed out to me, before the Monza cap is fitted to the adapter, the thick rubber gasket needs to be removed and replaced with an O-ring which is actually in the adapter kit. If you don't, what happens is the adapter plate doesn't screw in far enough, and I would add that this is not a safety issue, it's an aesthetics issue, and it leaves about 4 or 5 millimeters of thread still showing at the bottom when it's fully screwed in. Now this has the effect of making the whole Monza cap sit higher on the tank than it should be. Basically it sticks up too far. So as an addendum to Wednesday's video, remove the existing gasket from inside the Monza cap and then replace it with the included slim O-ring, making sure that you push it right down to the bottom where the Monza cap seats onto the adapter plate. Then screw the adapter in fully. The rest of the procedure is exactly the same, it's just this one little thing that I got wrong. Now it's not a huge difference, but if you do it this way, what happens is the thread goes completely into the Monza cap and you lose that 4 or 5 millimeters of thread. It effectively goes all the way in. So it lowers the Monza cap by about 5 millimeters and looks much neater. This is, if you like, all part of the continual development that Motone have been doing. Once again, my apologies, I will try harder. Right, now for today's subject. This is not going to be a long video. I need to cut this as short as possible because there just hasn't been enough hours in this week. Next week, fingers crossed, I have a review coming up for a sat-nav from a well-known sat-nav manufacturer. And as part of the review, it was necessary to wire the sat-nav mounting system into the bike. Now, at the best of times, I don't like chopping it into wires. There've been 1 or 2 sort of electrical modifications I've made to this bike over the last 2 years. And I don't want the wiring harness of the bike to start to resemble lots of pieces of string tied together, which is what was starting to happen. Now, the connection for the sat-nav can't be live all the time. It should only be live when the ignition is switched on. So what I decided to do was wire it into the circuit for the rear light, because I've already made some modifications there. That is going to have to be replaced at some stage anyway. So it made sense to go to that part of the wiring system rather than starting to cut up elsewhere. Now the only problem with this is I've already chopped into the wiring to fit the R&G tail tidy that I did some 1.5 years ago, and I also chopped into it to fit that Smart Turn Systems brake light module, and to be quite honest, it was all becoming a bit of a mess. Now I've already shot the video for the sat-nav, and what I did is I wired it in temporarily by doubling up on some of the connections I've already made in the past, but I wasn't happy with it. I didn't think it would be secure and go the distance, so I needed to find a more sensible long-term solution. Now I was talking to Sam at Motone Customs about this, and he pointed out that about 1 year ago he sent me a wiring harness which is a direct plug and play replacement for the Triumph Triumph wiring harness for the rear end of the bike for the tail light and the rear indicators. And he also pointed out that this has an accessory connector on it to allow you to do just this sort of thing. So I dug it out and I'm quickly going to show you it. Now, I'm not going to do a blow by blow rewiring everything up, which colour wire goes to where, etc. I've done that in previous videos. I don't propose to keep going over it, but there are plans to change the back end of the bike, the tail light, the indicators, etc. in due course. So what I'll do is I'll go into that in more detail when that happens. Plan is, as you probably know, Moton make their own tail tidy. This is the R&G tail tidy that I've got fitted. Now, at the time they brought this out, which is when Moton sent me this harness, the Moton tail tidy had been designed to fit the Street Twin. And because of some complications in the design of the seat for the T120, it didn't fit, which is why I ended up fitting the R&G tail tidy. Also, it had the Lucas style light, which I'm not too keen on. Now, Moton have just released a new tail tidy that will fit the T120, and it's also designed to accept Moton's new range of high pressure die cast alloy lights, which does appeal to me. And I think at the same time I'm also going to be looking at fitting some of Moton's indicators to the bike. So I'll be going from LED back to incandescent indicators. So some aspects of this wiring are only going to be temporary. The tail light and the rear indicators aren't going to be there forever. So for today I'm just going to concentrate on this accessory till that Moton have thoughtfully incorporated into this loom. I did in the back of my head know that it existed, but it just never occurred to me how damn useful something like this can be. So basically this is the loom. You've got a left rear indicator, a right rear indicator, the connectors for the tail light and brake light cluster, and one spare one marked A, which is A for accessory. Now, I should mention this wiring loom is not designed to work with the OEM Triumph indicators. They have very, very short leads on them. In fact, ridiculously short. And this wiring loom doesn't reach them. So I had to make up some 3-inch extensions to make this work. If you're fitting the Moton indicators, you won't have any problem. They put plenty of cable on their indicators. Now, bear with me because I've got some news towards the end of this video. So, fast forward, I've now got the tail light reconnected and the left and right rear indicator reconnected. All that's left now is to connect the sat nav back up. Now, thankfully, the manufacturer supplies plenty of cable with this sat nav. There's about 4, maybe even 5 feet of it. So I followed the existing wiring loom underneath the fuel tank from the handlebars to the rear of the bike, securing it in place as I went along so everything was safe and everything was neat and tidy. It doesn't come with any bullet connectors, so I put a couple of male bullet connectors onto the end of it, and it simply plugs into that accessory tail on the Moton harness. Now, I know this is only going to be temporary. This is all going to get changed in the next month or so, maybe 2 months, but I do like to make a good job of things. You don't want connections coming undone when you're out on a ride somewhere. So I followed up by using various gauges of shrink wrap to waterproof and stabilise all the connections. It's as simple as that. I can't understand why no one else has thought of doing something like this. Now, at some stage, we all want to fit some form of accessories on our bikes, whether it be a sat nav, a set of spotlights, fog lights, anything like that. Even a set of heated grips if you don't want to go to the expense of buying the Triumph ones. Now, I've discussed this at length with Sam at Moton, and he's decided that what he's going to do is going to make up some extensions that will work with this harness with the correct connectors to allow you to use it with the Triumph indicators if you decide to use the Triumph indicators. Now, bearing in mind this is a short harness, it's designed for use with tail tidies, not with the original fender or mudguard that comes with the bike. He's also decided that he's going to put together some sort of wiring loom, not necessarily connected with this harness, that will allow people to add accessories to the bike without having to cut into the wiring. It'll be a simple plug and play solution. I'm not sure when this is going to happen, but Sam said that he's going to look into it straight away. Please let me know in the comments what you think of this idea and how many accessory connections you think would be reasonable. Myself and Sam decided that probably 3 would be about right, but let me know what you think. Now, the video for the sat-nav should be coming up next week. I will leave a link for this wiring harness in the video description down below. I hope you found this video enlightening or useful. If you have, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I will be back next Wednesday, so until then, please ride safely and I'll see you soon. A few weeks ago, those nice people at TomTom got in touch with me. They said something about me looking a bit lost and would I like to review one of their sat-navs. The TomTom Radar 550 to be precise. Now, I think lost is a bit of a harsh word. I'm a Yorkshireman. Yorkshiremen don't get lost. We just don't always know where we are in relation to where we're going. Now, for the last 2 or 3 years, I've been using my mobile phone when I need some sort of sat-nav on my bike. A mobile phone works at a push, but it's not ideal. And if you use it a lot and you don't have a decent data package with your mobile phone provider, it can also be quite costly to run, or at least substantially eat into your data package, so that you don't have enough data left over for your monthly ration of cute, fluffy kitten videos. So in a lot of ways, a dedicated motorcycle sat-nav makes sense. The Radar 550 is, I think, TomTom's flagship motorcycle model, and it shows. It's a very well made, robust piece of equipment, made from what I presume is some sort of ABS plastic with a sort of metal frame, which I think is either alloy or magnesium, which covers both sides, wraps around the back and terminates where it clips into the mount. It also protects the speaker from knocks and bangs. There are 2 rubberized doors or trap doors at the back. One reveals a micro USB port, and the other one is there to accept a micro SD card. The Radar 550 does come with ample memory, but it also comes with lifetime maps and traffic alerts. So with something like a 16GB micro SD card, I would think you can quite literally load the entire world onto it. So you're covered for every eventuality. The Radar 550 does come fully equipped in the box with a RAM mount and all the necessary mounting hardware. This particular RAM mount is the 2-position adjustment type with just a single thumb screw to operate both adjustment points. The kit also comes with an electrical wiring kit so that you can wire the sat-nav into your bike's ignition, so the sat-nav itself just becomes a plug and play item. If you don't want to go to the trouble of wiring it in, the 550 itself does feature a 6-hour rechargeable battery. The wiring kit itself does come with plenty of cable, and it's just 2 wires, so it's not difficult to connect up to your bike. There are 2 electrical connectors both on the mount and on the sat-nav itself, and mounting and dismounting the sat-nav is child's play. Once you've wired it up in this way, simply putting your ignition on will automatically boot up the sat-nav. The sat-nav itself has a nice bright 4.3-inch glove-friendly touch-sensitive screen, and sensitivity is easily adjustable via the menus. As you would expect with a top-of-the-range sat-nav, the user interface is feature-rich. There's enough in there to keep your average technophile happy, but TomTom have also been very careful to ensure that your average technophobe doesn't have any problems operating it. The sat-nav is Wi-Fi enabled and it's very easy to set up with your router at home. Out of the box, you can load all of your maps quickly and easily without any fuss whatsoever. And the advantage of this Wi-Fi system is that whenever you boot the device up within range of your router, it will automatically detect updates and ask you if you want to download them. And I found that I can even do this from my garage without any need to remove the sat-nav from the bike. Just that in itself brings a whole new level of convenience and usability. Gone are the days of spending hours trying to rig your sat-nav up to your computer and going through the laborious process of searching out updates and then trying to download them. The 550 is also Bluetooth enabled. It's a fuss-free process pairing it up with your phone. The 550 will display any text messages that you get while you're riding. And if you have a Bluetooth headset, that can also be connected up so that the sat-nav can read those messages to you, or you can also receive phone calls. I personally don't use a Bluetooth headset, but it's very handy for those that do. The free to download TomTom My Drive app suddenly turns this sat-nav into an amazing navigational tool. And I personally found this to be the most convenient way of planning routes and setting up destinations on the sat-nav. It's very simple and straightforward. Just punch your destination in on your phone in the search box, and once the route comes up, press send. The phone then automatically sends the route directly to the sat-nav and everything's ready to go. The app also contains a huge number of legendary and famous rides, covering areas from all around the world. You can simply select one and then send it to your sat-nav in exactly the same way. This app to me is genius. The sat-nav itself has all the usual route information that you would expect to find. You've got estimated time of arrival, distance travelled, distance to your destination, current speed limit, and of course your current speed. I found that had pinpoint accuracy, details of roadworks, and up to the minute traffic information. I found that the sat-nav was constantly updating new locations for speed cameras, and as you would expect with any high-end sat-nav, it will also give you details and locations of filling stations and areas where you can park. Being a motorcycle specific sat-nav, you can also plan specific routes that would be more appealing to a motorcyclist, for winding roads and hilly terrain, that kind of thing. It'll even suggest points of interest to visit along the way, or you can input your own points of interest. It really does seem to have everything covered. I do think that the TomTom Rider 550 is the perfect companion for a bit of bike touring, or just for general day-to-day use. TomTom have thought of everything and then have incorporated it into a really robust, high-quality package. Now, last Friday, I made a video showing how to wire this into Motone Customs accessory wiring harness. So if you'd like to know what's involved, have a look at that last video. Once again, thanks very much for watching. I hope you found this video useful and that you've enjoyed it. If you have, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. I will of course see you again soon, so until then, please ride safely and I'll see you soon.